It's recording already. It started while you were out.
All right, we will go ahead and call this meeting to order at 6 p.m. with a flag salute, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we are going to start with reviewing the budget. Is Mr. Bailey online? No. I don't even know where it goes. Did you see it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hello. There you are, the genius.
Yeah.
You're up, Mr.
Sorry about
that.
No, it's okay.
You have to be here.
Woohoo!
Or you there.
You did perfectly.
Well, it's our budget hearing. And this is for the patrons, and I think within your packet, you have the information that was approved. I have the chairman of the board here, the genius is. And I can go over briefly, because you have to adopt the resolution. And you'll notice on the summary of the resources, 16,924,161 on the far right column. And if you go to the third page, back, you'll see the appropriations are the same amount. They have to balance. And then the last page is what has been published in the paper. We published it in the Corvallis Gazette, is that right? I have to make sure the paper is the Ag Democrat, is that correct? Correct. And the Paloma. Is published in all those. And that gives the public information, and they can come and attend and make ask any questions. So it summarizes both what was approved, what was adopted last year, and the prior year's history. So is there any questions? And I don't know if you have any questions from the public.
I haven't had any.
Okay. That is it. I have nothing more.
Do we need
Nothing here. You don't approve anything.
Okay.
It's just, it's a hearing for the public to make comment on the document.
okay,
I
and
appreciate you.
Laura, do we have a public comment that's been submitted? Okay. So with that,
I just wanted to say thank you to the budget committee, the administration that helped put it together, especially our chairman here that facilitated. Did a good job.
all right, well, we can close the budget hearing then at 6:03 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. With that, we will move into our regular session at 6:03 p.m. And are there any amendments to make to the agenda this evening? I have a list.
You've got them.
Okay, so I would like to amend the new business agenda to include the following, and Laura, I will send these to you, so you don't need to document anything here. So we have swearing in George Lablin this evening for the board to consider. Movement of the July meeting to be considered, setting a superintendent salary discussion, superintendent of record discussion, and then there's a request to move the insurance packet from with WHA into July. Is there any discussion on that? But there was some feedback about the July.
So Kristen, please let me, and I believe in the conversation we had, the board has to have the insurance approved before July 1. That is when the new insurance policy begins, correct?
Yes, the new insurance policy course, July 1.
So if the board moves it to July, it won't matter because we will just roll over currently what we have. Currently, correct, on that one? So, okay, so that would be the issue in rolling it into July, is that by July first, PACE requires us to have that in place.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
They're bringing a proposal tonight with options on the fidelity for our auditor. So would you approve that tonight so it become in effect on July 1?
We didn't receive the packet in time. I've not even had an opportunity to look at it.
So I guess the question I would ask is how in depth can we get this evening in understanding the information in front of us to adopt?
I was just gonna go over the changes, particular changes from last year. We did go in more depth last year and I also voted on the crime last year as well. So I was gonna go through the rest of that there isn't too much.
Is there any concern with keeping it on and just having some discussion and moving even a vote to like into an ad hoc meeting if we needed to before July?
That would be okay.
That would be okay?
I'm okay. I recall our discussion from last year pretty well.
It was pretty extensive last year. I
Yeah.
think we wanted to really go through it. Make sure. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm gonna just repeat that really quick, sorry. Swearing in George Lakeland would go to new business, moving July meeting, new business, discussing superintendent salary, new business. And then superintendent of record, new business. Any concerns with that? All right, hearing none, we will approve the agenda. And move into our consent agendas.
We do have a correction to the minutes,
Which set?
section 7.
Of the
New
board.
business
Of the board meeting or seismic or which one?
Are you making-
to.
Coordinate.
Okay.
Section 7, new business, item A, it looks like there was just some double typing of the board chair to issue a letter to board chair to issue a letter to the Alsea School District. I'm assuming it's just supposed to read board chair to issue a letter to the Alsea School District's requesting party stating that the board has determined.
Yeah, so we'll go back. Okay. Laura, did you see those? Okay.
That's my only recommendation.
Is there a motion to approve with the recommendation?
Are we pulling this one out separately or are we?
No, it's just a motion to approve as amended. The minutes as amended, or the minutes corrected. How about that?
But not, just so we're pulling out the minutes to do them separately.
No, no, you just say the motion. Yep.
So I move to approve the consent agenda with the corrections to the minutes.
I would say the board, the 5/13/25 board. minutes.
So I will amend my motion to, I will move to approve the consent with amendments to the 5/13/2025 board meeting minutes.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion? Laura, roll call vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Thank you.
Laura, can you check to see if there's anybody in the waiting room? Mr. Harris said he's been in the
And then any patron comments this evening? All right, well, hearing none, we'll move into reports. Just really quick before we jump into reports. I just want to make a request to all presenting this evening. If we could be concise in our time, I will try to keep us in a time frame. So because we have a very long meeting. So keep reports to about 5 minutes, please. If we need to have discussion questions, we understand that happens, but let's start there. So with that, our first report is going to be our educational spotlight for high dosage tutoring. Is
Mrs. Shunk is on there,
Miss, okay,
as well as
Not the
Mr.
member Sutherland.
Sedlin and
Yeah.
myself.
Hey everyone, I'm straddling two different accesses to this. I'm on my phone and on the computer because for some reason I'm having a volume issue. So, are you all able to hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So, we had a wonderful year with this new process that we started. Ms. Nira and I identified that our online teachers could provide significant tutoring help for the brick and mortar students, and they have that in the schedule to be able to do that. So through core phonics assessment, there was an identification of specific students in grades 2, 3, and 4 that were scheduled for individual targeted tutoring on a daily basis, Monday through Thursday. And our wonderful teachers did an excellent job. It was fun when I visited to see them on this side of the computer and listening to the students. And then I also had opportunities to sub in and if a teacher was out, so I was able to see how this rotation went as well. And I just want to thank all of our teachers for making sure to track progress, to engage students, and also just really being a positive, bringing this in with just such positivity. I think that Mr. Cedarlin is going to share his experience, and I'm just very proud that we started this and working across schools to support students. It is very exciting. So with that, Mr. Cedarlin, can you go ahead?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for letting me talk. I'm sorry I'm not there. I love it there. Keeping the time down as best I can. It was a great experience, actually, to be with the kids from Brick and Mortar. It was wonderful. In fact, I loved it. And it seemed like they really liked it too, which I think is important. Everybody likes it. We were able to build relationships pretty quickly. And I thought, well, the data bears out. It worked. I can't say that it's because of us, because there's a classroom teacher and a family and a school, and there's all kinds of educators everywhere. But I think we made a contribution to their improvement, and they all improved. The data bears that out. And it was also very nice that it was the evaluations that we did were very specific. Like, what exactly do I work on? It's not help them read. It's let's do blends. Which blends exactly? So it was really nice to have that information and keep that information updated, and to work on that information with a lot of repetition with the kids while having fun. And also, the kids got in front of a computer with me and with the other teachers, and they got this sort of experience with computers and with seeing words and interacting through this medium also, which is not an unusual medium these days. So I think that was also good for them. I think it was a success. I loved it, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to do it. I don't want to speak for 20 minutes because I have 30 seconds more. So if anyone has any questions for me, I'm here.
So the time that we paid for the Learn at Home staff came out of the early literacy grant. And so we were able to pay I think it was 0.1 of their salary out of the early literacy grant, because they did the high dosage tutoring, and this was one of the strategies. And some of the feedback, we would get from our students and the brick and mortar is they loved going. We had an aide help facilitate it. But they loved going. We got feedback from the teachers and aides, and even some of the people like our SLP, who said they actually could see the growth of the students, their confidence. They would say in the classroom, students were actually more willing to answer questions and to read out loud. And so Mrs. Shunk and I are looking at how can we add another set. So we were only able to do 4 rounds at 15 minutes apiece of 4 students. And we're hoping next year that we can figure out how to do 5 rounds of 4 students, because it's been so positive and successful. And thank you to the Learn at Home teachers and Mrs. Shunk. We worked really hard to actually match the kids with the teachers that we thought that they would really go through. And then, when the kids weren't there, we heard a lot from parents being like, they were really sad because they got to miss their time with Mr. Sutherland or Miss Naylor, or when they didn't see Mr. Sutherland or Miss Naylor because perhaps they were out, or Miss Waverick or Miss Dapkus, they were like, we didn't get to see them today. So it was also a good relationship building. And so they have now another adult that they can go through. So I'm hoping that the district can to continue to do that. And we used it with our staff, which was even better.
Any questions or comments?
So this was like a pilot project with just 4 students, correct?
No, we did it
Oh,
with 16 total.
16 total.
And what we did is every 6 weeks, they redid their core phonics. And if a student mastered what they needed to and didn't need any more, we move another student in
So these 16 students, percentage of students who could really benefit from this, what?
there. It could be more, but we only had so much time because we actually had to, we still have to follow contract with prep time and all those different pieces. We were just able, when we looked at contract and looked at time, we were able to carve out about, I think Mrs. Shunk was an hour and 15 minutes out of their schedule and still follow that contract time. The difference next year is the early literacy grant is going to allow for instructional aides to be trained and to do high dosage tutoring, which was not allowed to do it. So our hope is that we are able to train at least 1 to maybe 2 instructional assistants to be able to do that, which means we could add another set or 2 sets to it. And so I think the more the merrier in there. And it was great because I sat with Miss Holly, Miss Pinion, and Miss Treadway, and we actually handpicked based on data which kids would go into this. And then we would look at their data and say, these are the 3 skills we want you to work on every single day with them.
And that was really neat, by the way, just the fact that we were raising awareness and then being hyper focused on exactly what they needed sort of also turned them and maybe their parents and maybe, everyone around them to this particular thing that they're looking at, that spotlight. And so just the whole raising awareness might have worked, beyond, before the repetition and before the specific actual work, just focused and awareness was probably had a big effect as that, and getting some attention, also individual attention.
And I want to add, on Mr. Cedarland's report at the bottom, you have an example of our tracking the selection, the exact targeted practice. And our teachers did a wonderful job of filling in information as they were tracking progress. So teachers had access to that tracking data so they could review and see how their students were doing. So there was that communication and share of information and transparency. And the teachers, the brick and mortar teachers really appreciated that piece as well. So.
And what I wanted to also point out is we did our data and our strategies came from science of reading best practices. It was not, oh, we're going to do this because we've done it before. It was based in the science of reading best practices.
Wonderful. I love the opportunity to merge our brick and mortar and online. And I look forward to more of that opportunity involving even our brick and mortar students with online. Excuse me, I said that backwards. Our online students with our brick and mortar staff and students.
I like to second that.
Same. I third.
Well, thank you so much, not only for bringing it to the school and the teachers, but yeah, to our students and the growth they got to see.
Thank you for the support.
All right, Superintendent K-12 principal reports.
I'm not going to go through it completely. I do on my superintendent want to go through to the very end. I put on for the board some data. So the first data was our OSAS testing. So remember in OSAS, we do mathematics, ELA, and science for the 23-22 school year. So I wanted to give you guys that data as well as the participation percentage. Our participation percentage for last year was much higher than in years before. However, the state, actually, I don't want to say the state, the federal government requires us to have a minimum of 90% participation. So we're working on it. But I wanted to give you, this is what our participation was last year, plus our results. I'm not breaking them down by grade because there would be some grade levels that I actually can't show due to the data size. But then the next page is actually the OSAS results for this year. I do not have participation rates on there because they will not become final until the fall. I will tell you our participation rates were about the same, maybe a smidge higher. But you can see that there is some movement in terms of how our students are doing. We still have some ways to go. I'm gonna tell you, some of this is not that they can't do it. Some of it really is, we need to really teach the importance of taking these pieces. We have a lot of clicking going on, but the fact that we can get kids on to do it, now the next step the teachers know is, how do we take this next step seriously? We talk a lot about, you have to take tests in life to have jobs. We have to take tests to drive. And so I wanted to give you that data. This isn't a for sure, this is, I don't wanna say a for sure, but this hasn't been, completely, oh, I can't even think of it. Finalized. It'll be finalized in the fall, but this is a tentative piece that we pulled off. And then I wanted to give you all our data for this year for iReady. So you can see, at the end of the year, between the fall assessment and the spring assessment, you can see that our red, remember, which is 1 or 2 or more grade levels or 3 more grade levels behind, dropped from 46% to 28. So we still have some work to do, but we're getting there. And this actually is a lot better. I compared it to last year's. Is a lot better. The teachers are using the data. We do data chats with them. I do data chats with them in the fall and in the mid-year, and they actually have to write student learning growth goals. My elementary teachers and my high school, junior high, high school math and ELA teachers have to write goals around this. When we talk about growth goals, and so at the bottom, you can see the 3 different schools, how they fared throughout. I was very impressed with all of them. They worked really hard. The next page, so page 7 actually shows you the growth goals. As I said in my reports before, the state has passed an accountability law that in 2 years, they're gonna start implementing in 2027. That they're gonna start implementing growth goals for every school based on like size schools and like demographics. And one of the pieces they're gonna use is actually interim assessments, things like iReady. So they're actually gonna have 5 interim assessments that all districts have to use, and then they have to submit data from that. So I want to get this board prepared about what we're looking at and what data they go for. So for reading, you can see that when we talk about typical growth, every student takes a test in the fall, and it says in order, based on this national norm, this is, if you're here, this is how much we're typically should see for you to grow. So in general, our schools, our students typically grew 106% above what they should in general. And obviously there's some that grew less, some that grew more. You can see the elementary school was 135%. Stretch growth means that you're getting closer to grade level or wherever you need to be. Our middle and high school actually did a typical growth of 161%, which was great for them. And then if you go down to the next page, this is the math. Math is a struggle. It is a struggle for a lot of districts. And so we're really implementing and focusing. My teachers have been focusing on implementing the core curriculum to its fullest. And then we've been doing a lot of PD around that. We still have a lot of work to do, but we're starting. The problem is, I think when we talk about how you do teacher preparation programs, there's not a lot of math preparation. And so I'm trying to bring in a lot of PD for my staff about how do you teach math. And what are best practices. And so I wanted to start putting this in front of you all. You can also see the next page is the growth page. I wanted to put this in front of you all because in the next 2 years, you are going to see this data because the state is going to require it. And like I said, it just passed actually early last week. So I wanted to give you guys that data for your review. And then this, what I really like about having iReady now is now we have historical data on kids. So teachers can look back next year, 2 years to see where students came from, where they were and where they're going. And then the principal report, I just put things in there. We finished up our student of the month. So we just got pictures today. That's why you don't have any. And then we took some field trips and we had an after school choir concert. Miss Ellis has been doing some after school choir things. And we used some of our Benton Community Foundation money to also pay for this. And she still has a grant with the Sluts. I think it's a tribal grant, right? It was actually great for doing this for 1 day a week for an hour. I was very impressed. They did amazing. And then thank you all very much for attending the commencement ceremony. very proud of the kids. A lot of them worked very hard this year, especially to make sure they could graduate on time, and a staff put in a lot of time and effort into that. And then I put on, let me see if I can get to it. The last thing I put on, I sent this to you all, but I wanted to put it on the record, is on the 27th, I met with staff to talk about budget. Upcoming future. I think a lot of times people don't understand how budgets work in Oregon. I know that we've learned a lot over the past 2 years. And so I wanted to share this with staff. I shared it with staff. I shared it with you all in my superintendent update, and I wanted to make sure the community had this information as well. So if there were any questions, perhaps this would help give more information out and understand how, how money looks. And I appreciate, there's a slide on there that talks about enrollment, staffing levels, and where we went, and ADM to FTE ratios. And I think that's important moving forward for the administration and the board to work together to understand where that ratio is at in order to write ourselves in terms of staffing to student ratio. And again, I think it's really important as we go forth that this board and the district remembers is the purpose of the school district is to educate the children. It is not to be the employer of any piece, but it is the number one priority is to be, how do you provide the best education for the kids? And I think these are types of questions and these are types of information moving forward with administration and board, that those are questions that I think to ask. But I always think it's important to be in the forefront, is the purpose of this district is to provide the best education you can for the children of this district. And so, like I said, I wanted to put this in here so the community also had this information.
Any questions?
I just have a couple comments on that. The budget basics, that first page where it talks about how we had to pay back because the actual ADM was less than our projected ADM. When you look at the raw ADMR numbers, they're basically the same. It seemed like this is clearly that we had to pay it back because of the weighted ADM, correct?
Dawn.
The IEP excess.
Right, and that's what I could tell by the number. It's exactly the same amount. But it's not totally clear from someone who doesn't know that.
Well, and
This
that's
is-
why I think they need to come in and ask questions. I think that, I don't want to put everything on a slide. I think this is in general. And what I will say is we had to pay back 87.9, but we actually had a credit for the year after of 30,000. 50, no, we had to pay
Had to pay
52.
whatever. it
Yeah.
might be.
So we actually did have to pay. And I know there was a lot of conversations before I came about, people talked about this May surprise. That's why it's important for us to be really looking at our numbers all the time and estimating. And we are lucky because we were able to write that check pretty quick. Some districts actually have to take out loans for it. And so that's why it's very important for that estimation to occur.
And I had a question about the student growth data, and it's completely unclear to me, although you explained it fairly well there. I know more now than I did when I looked at the page. But my question is, there's a pretty large discrepancy between Learn at Home and the brick and mortar classes in the growth. Is that a potentially because of the way data is collected or something? Or
No, that should be
something-
collected all the same way. And so that's something that next year, the new administration and Mrs. Shunk can come together and talk about ways to really collect that data. Well, not collect, but ways that they can help the Learn at Home staff and Mrs. Shunk support that particular piece. Because they really all take the same test.
Because it was so different that I thought, is this real? And if it is, like, well, there's the data, we can work with it.
Yep. And so I think that data shows something that needs to be worked on for next year. Which is what you want data to do.
Other questions? All right, we'll go into the enrollment report.
Pretty self-explanatory.
Are there any questions on it? All right, regular attenders.
We went up for, I don't even know what month we're in, holy moly.
That would've
The
been
month of
May.
June, so, I'm not thinking we're gonna see very much movement for June because, we're in June 12th. I think sickness really hit us hard. I just wanna emphasize to everybody is kids have to be at school. I've emphasized to my teachers, the entire year. We teach bell to bell and we don't take time off. And so it's important when kids are at school, that's when they learn. When they're not at school, you can't make up some of the stuff that happens at school. You can't make up the organic discussions that occur between classmates and the teachers. So it's important, especially in the younger ages and especially in the older ages, that we have more percentage of our students coming to school 90% more of the time. We gave out a lot of t-shirts and we gave out a lot of sweatshirts, but I want to give out more. And if the new administration continues to really emphasize that, I hope that everybody can get something that shows their attendance, because really all you have to do is show up. You don't have to do anything else. And remember, 90% attendance or higher is you miss literally, I think it's 15 days. We don't even get 15 sick days.
And it's frustrating, those numbers just don't seem to be budging, but I see there's so much work being put into getting kids to come to school, but the numbers just seem to be.
Well, and I
stagnant.
think that too is a reach out into the parents. The parents also have to make it, because a kindergartner doesn't wake themselves up and get to school, or a first grader. But I think that habit starts young. And so we really need to continue to focus. I know it's going to be a focus of the state. We are not lower than the state. I'll tell you, we're about the state average. And so I think, like I said, 90% attendance is missing 15 or less days. So it is important, and people have to make it a priority to come to school, to be here. And I think there's some pieces that the school also needs to be responsible for: creating a safe and inviting culture, creating an engaging learning environment, but it has to be a partnership. So.
Unfortunately, state accountability is gone.
And that is one of the major reasons, yes.
All right. With that, we will move into Learn at Home Oregon report. Ms. Shunk.
Okay. To begin with, we had to combine our May and June assemblies. So we're going to be doing that on the last day of school, which is fun. And it's going to be an exciting piece because we'll have our 5th grade graduation at the same time. I wanted to add that we had a lot of friends, a lot of the students were able to get together over the last month, and that's been wonderful. So that's something that we're going to be working on next year, various opportunities for regional groups or whoever can join up. So that's a big target for us next year, because you can see when you look at the pictures how happy. I just happened to go to a park in my own neighborhood, and as I was walking in, I heard names, and there were 2 of our students, 2 siblings, and I couldn't believe it. And it was a really wonderful experience. So whenever we're able to get together, we are excited about that. I added in a piece from our community newsletter that comes out monthly of different, learning spotlight around in each of the classrooms. And then, yes, the iReady data. You're 100% right. So this is something that I actually have been in talks with iReady. Our iReady consultant has been very supportive, because I said we are struggling in the online environment. So I need to know how they are, what we can do in order to make this a more successful data piece for our school, because the teachers are adamant that of course, the data does not match the reality of what they're seeing in, every day when they're interacting with their students. Some of it does, but a lot of it doesn't. And so it has become a frustrating piece. So there's, working with families, making sure that the diagnostic time period is supported at home. There's all of these different things that I'm learning about with our consultant. So I'm hopeful that we're going to see a lot better data that is accurate to what the teachers are seeing in the classroom. But yeah, it's been a very frustrating piece trying to figure out how to do this in an online environment, but we are going to get it figured out, and other schools have gotten it figured out. So I'm confident that we will as well. And then down below, I just added in a few projects that I'm working on. Right now, we're in the middle of our summative evaluation process for teachers. And part of that piece is looking at growth data, like an entire section. So it's been a really great opportunity for me to talk about that data, figure out plans with teachers. They are hyper aware that the school district expects great growth and that we all expect great growth of our students. So that's been a really great part of our conversations in this evaluation process. The next thing is the CLSD grant that Ms. Nira mentioned earlier that we're working on to provide resources for our to close achievement gaps and to do whatever we can to get everybody reading and proficient and confident, because while we do, and this is kind of my little phrase, while there is the science of reading, which is exactly what we are aligned with, it's not rocket science. We just have to know how to do it in the classroom and then make sure that we're consistent with that explicit instruction. And then the last thing is our priority standards. And I mentioned this before, that Ms. Nira and I worked on with our two main curriculums, SAVIS and iReady, and we have taken all the standards and narrowed it down, and those are our promises. This is what these students will be at proficiency level or higher. This is what we are fully focused on. So with that, there's a creation of a rubric that goes along with that so that it's easy for parents and it's easy for students and it's easy for teachers to identify where their kid lies. And so I think next year we're going along with the hyper-focus targeted instruction. We're going to be on the right road. I'm very proud of that work. Any questions?
I have a couple questions. The one thing the little thing at the bottom about teacher evaluations talks about aligning teacher evaluations with student outcomes. And then is that a standard practice among schools where you
legally cannot grade teachers on student outcomes, but they do have student learning growth goals. So we do talk about if they met them or not.
the other
Yeah.
thing was
That's
more of an
probably worded.
observation, of an
Yeah.
observation in the iReady data. I noticed that the breakdown by placement by domain is quite different between Learn at Home and the brick and mortar schools. Like phonological awareness is like way higher at Learn at Home, but like phonics is higher at the brick and mortar. And I'm just wondering if there's some big difference between the schools that we could harness to make it so they all are really high.
So hold on, Soren, I did not share just brick and mortar in my reports. It was all the districts.
Okay.
So that's the comparison. So there might be some difference, but it's really hard to say because in mine, I just did the district wide. Does that
Which
make
includes
sense?
Learn at Home.
What?
It includes Learn at
Yeah,
Home.
it includes Learn at Home as well.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's something that I think moving forward, the administration could sit down and decide with the teachers next steps in terms of that data. So.
Thank you for your question so that and I appreciate Ms. Nira clarifying that. I probably worded that incorrectly. It just gives us a chance to say, hey, and really identify what's happening in classrooms and how we can improve and be very reflective and targeted in what our focus is.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ms. Shunk.
Thank you.
All right, we have the June board report for Mr. Harris.
Good evening, everyone. Nice to see you. So summary of June. So middle school, just want to make a mention, middle school 7-8 academic and sports awards will be taking place tomorrow, along with 8th grade promotion. Awards will start at 7. Promotion will take place following that, somewhere around 7:30. And also there will be a rising 9th grade parent meeting at 6:15 tomorrow in the library, I believe, which will be facilitated by Ms. Nirot and Ms. Wilson. So anybody that has a 8th grade student being promoted might want to attend that meeting as well, just to kind of give them some information about what it takes to be successful in high school and the requirements and that kind of thing. So that will be available early before the promotion. Mountain West League, we held our last meeting on June 4th. We voted on the high school basketball schedule for next year. This schedule is a little bit different than what has been in the past. A lot of teams in our league don't feel their competitiveness is worthy of 2 games. So we've implemented a 1 league game schedule this year. And then we have the liberty to schedule, like I play Mohawk once, but I have the liberty to schedule with Mohawk again as a non-league game. So this gives us a little bit more flexibility as far as competitiveness and other schools that feel like they're not going to be as competitive. That was something that a bunch of them talked about and were concerned about. So right now I just have a few schools that I'm waiting to hear from as far as the high school schedule goes. But probably we'll have that completed by the end of next week at best. So we also voted to welcome Falls City and Eugene Christian High School into the middle school league. Eugene Christian High School is formerly Manor House, or Manor House is being absorbed. Manor House of Eugene is being absorbed by Eugene Christian. So now they're kind of reworking their programs and building those programs, but we're excited to have them. Another vote we took was concerning middle school basketball schedule. Middle school basketball schedule, because of the size of some of our schools with only 1 gymnasium, makes it really tough for some of them to try and schedule middle school, high school basketball, wrestling, all that kind of stuff. So we went ahead with middle school and decided to split the schedule, which apparently that was how it was done a few years ago, where the girls will play their season first, starting November 10th. Their tournament will be January 24th, and then the boys will begin playing their season on January 21. And then their tournament will be held March 21st. It changes their number of games from about 20 down to about 15. But again, this was something that just trying to work with the league and being able to schedule. I had my coaches meeting yesterday and they were all fine with it. And then said that that's how they used to do it. So I feel like that'll be all right. We'll see how that goes. And maybe next year, I don't know, they'll change it again or something. And finally, we did have a PBIS meeting a couple weeks ago, finalized everything for PBIS, school-wide expectation matrix, those kinds of things. So I'll be working in the next couple of weeks to just kind of get things finalized, work with Nicole to come up with some just posters, banners for the classrooms, things like that, that will put those behavioral expectations up in front of everybody. And this provides just, a little bit more specific, consistent behavioral expectation from, say one classroom to the next. And then of course, in all of the common areas of the school as well. So any questions on anything?
My only comment would be as if it's not additional expense, if that behavior support design and all that information could be posted on our website as well, that would be amazing.
That will be something as we kind of finalize it, then absolutely that stuff will be posted and kind of, I don't know, kind of like a promotional blast, if you will, those, and probably send letters home to parents just to kind of inform them as well of kind of the change that's taking place. It's just a difference in, rules and expectations, but it does lend some communication that way. So I agree with that 100%. Jamie, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Harris.
You betcha.
Up to financial statement, Mr. Staley.
Anyway, hopefully you went through the summary. I'll try and make this quick. Some of the major things, Krista quickly went over that the state school support, we had to pay them back money, wrote them a check. Now to do the IEP change in the state formula for 23-24, they carried 24-25 and 25-26, which impacted the ending fund balance. As you can see, the ending fund balance is 6.4 compared to we budgeted 6.7. Again, we're using $1 million a year, maintain our budget. So as I said before, this is the time to start planning, because you have to get off the fund balance, and you need to decide what your ending fund balance, what you want to have it at the end. And usually you want to have it so it covers unknown, covers payroll in the summer, utilities in the summer, and it runs from 6 to 10% of your budget. So you need to plan on that. Other than that, I will go over each line. Chris and I have been working on all of the grants. I think we've got most of them done. Trying to get them done by June 30th. Claim all the dollars, like the source of dollars today, that's 205, Title I to the federal government. Working on the integrated guidance ones that are due by June 30th, and the others carry over till September 30th. So when you see a balance in Title I, Title II, or Title for the REAP, those carry over and they'll be handled. The remaining dollars will be handled by the new administration, how to do that. But we do have them budgeted a certain way, so we'll do that with the new person and see if this stays that way. Other than that, in the food service, we'll go over that. I'm going to show you that every time, so you know that you're spending money. Got an email today which startled Krista and I might as well share. And then I wrote a nice email back. Our payment to Corvallis went up by 10,000, 12,000 the next year. So it's at 48,000. Is that correct?
Yep.
So I asked them why, and they said that they had $1 million deficit in their food service, and they had to adjust and do actual costs of what services are costing. So we're having a meeting when we get the new administration in here with Corvallis, and look at what we can absorb here compared to what they do. But right now, I think we have to continue that contract and see if we can lower that cost, but that's a large increase, and we're already spending almost 60,000 a year. So yes, and Eric's left, and Haley is, I believe, maybe assuming that job.
She will be, Miss Bennett will be assuming a yes in the fall.
Yeah, and she's great. I enjoy her immensely, and she'll do a great job. So she's going to be getting training and all that, and it'll be a great experience. The Awesome Grant, I moved the dollars into the various capital projects, as you stated. 560 went into the seismic rehabilitation, and you'll see the balance in there. That's because not all POs have been encumbered. We're waiting for those contracts from Nancy and Chris and everything. We encumber them once those are finalized. In the capital projects, you have about 200,000 there right now after transferring those dollars. And then the bond is done. I think there's $3,000 left, so it's roughly history. The last part is the reserves, the PERS, and the unemployment. And one thing I said during the budget meeting, that we won't be charging unemployment for people next year because we have sufficient dollars there, and that'll help. Plus, we're not filling some positions too, so trying to lower that use of cash. Just can't say enough to plan about the next year, because we start the budget right away, the way I look at it. Figure it out. Any questions?
I just had a comment about the unemployment reserve where you state, it's still unknown what the cost will be, but then you state that there's enough money to cover it. That seems like unusual for you to make a categorical statement like that.
Because I did it at the budget meeting, I said if everybody applied, it'd be around 200,000. But we have 180,000 there. So if everybody applies, then the next budget, it will increase back up, so, hopefully it won't happen.
But we-
I wish I had a crystal ball.
Yeah, you say that so much that I'm like, he's just making a categorical statement here that we have enough money here, like,
Well, I-
unusual for Don.
Hopefully, but if I had a crystal ball, I could tell you what the state school support is gonna be in 5 years.
The different,
And how many students are going to be here.
but
So
the,
really in the big picture, and I'm, I'm not long-term, I'm short-term, but in the big picture, your expenses have to match your revenues. Plain and simple, you can't live off your savings. You can use your savings to plan, but you can't use your savings to maintain. Just remember that. I'm a firm believer of that. Wherever I've been for the 40 years, I've always preached the same thing, and we've always made it through. Okay. Any questions? Oh, last thing, we're in our audit right now because they moved this up to the front.
Oh,
So-
fantastic.
I'm just having a great time right now.
They go by alphabetical order now? or-
Audit and the end of the year and everything.
Great.
See,
Fun time.
see, brother, the LC is always good about getting us their data, so let's audit them first.
Yeah, well, I think we'll have it done early.
thank you so much. All right, we'll move into our construction and seismic report. Are Chris and Nancy on?
You guys
Hey,
know.
Chris and
Yes,
them.
no. Yep.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. We just have a brief report for you tonight. I just wanted to say for Nancy's and I part for beginning, we're very sorry to see, Krista, that this is our last month with you. The decision making and the leadership that we've experienced with you has been terrific. So thank you very much. All right, so our report here, you should have it there, and there's not a whole lot to share with you other than the last 3 weeks. We have been able to start on the seismic renovation for the locker rooms, and that's been going well. They've been able to get into the foundation work, and they're actually pouring concrete this week for the new foundations in that area. So that's going to be happening there and will actually continue. In fact, if you look at your reports from us at the top of page 3, there are some milestones for the seismic work that we shared with you, just big picture. What you're really going to see there is that as soon as school's out, beginning of next week, work in a lot of these different areas in the seismic renovation scope are going to be happening simultaneously. So Todd Construction and their subcontractors are staffing up, and they'll be doing a variety of work. The roof work will actually be held off a little bit, just making sure our weather holds. And really the good thing about the roof is, since now we're coming down through the top of it, tearing off the old roof, coming in at that structure, it's the interior work that really is the priority to finish before the end of the school, before the end of the summer for the new school year. So they understand that, they're on that, and the August 29th goal, even though it seems like a long ways away with summer just starting, it's they're running fast. They understand that every day counts. You also have the budget summary on page 2 for the seismic renovation that incorporates the additional funds that you folks approved last month. Thank you. And so all that's being reflected. We do have some of those change orders that we're pursuing for additional district requested items, such as the locker room shower partitions and the washer dryer in the staff room. So we're pursuing those, and we hope to resolve all of those before the end of the month. And then just regarding the fire alarm, there has been some pre-work happening on that, but we've been coordinating that primarily with the seismic work, so that's well coordinated. They're going to start hot and heavy next week as well. So very busy summer in the school this summer, and again, everybody's shooting for that August 29th date. And that's really the summer of our report. Any questions, any other details I can share with you?
Sounds like none. Thank you guys so much.
Great, thank you.
Safety committee report. Laura, anything on that one?
Well, I did not get it attached. But I can just briefly speak. we are continuing to work on, all of the things that, the risk management came and did visuals. All of the minors have been fixed. Rooms have been cleaned up and, some of the other little things like the window film for the doors and things like that has been ordered and will be applied over the summer.
Thank you so much. All right, let's move straight into new business. First up is our proposed budget approval. There is a resolution recommendation. Somebody wants, do you guys want to make a motion first, or do you guys have questions that you would like to ask?
Make a motion to approve resolution 2508, adopting the 25-26 budget. 27 budget.
You have to.
You have to read the whole thing, Jamie.
You have to
Oh.
mention the 3 areas. other
I was in
orders.
the other
That's
one.
all you need to do.
I have to read this whole resolution.
Yeah.
Is the motion requested?
Yeah,
Yeah.
motion requested.
On the bottom.
Make a motion to adopt resolution 2508, which includes adopting the budget, making the appropriations, imposing the tax, and categorizing the tax as presented.
There's a motion made. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
You, any discussion or questions? Okay, Laura, roll call vote.
Jamie,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Lauren,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
she carries forward as well.
Okay, WHA insurance options, and we have some guests this evening for that. So if you want to come up to the table.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So this is a rather large packet and I don't intend on going through much of it. As I said, we did go through things more in depth, at last year's end of the year board meeting. So I'll just kind of update you on the changes. We'll turn to kind of the middle of the packet right there to see the first page of the proposal.
Is it the educator's liability coverage proposal?
It's the proposal summary. The
There it is.
has outlined services that way.
Okay.
As I said, I'll kind of just go over the changes for this year. Pace decided to, separate out the sexual abuse and molestation coverage from the general liability. So that was a big change and it required a new application and it has its own, assigned, premium to it. And see that right under the educator's liability. And then one of the things that we did to kind of offset some of the rising costs of the insurance was Krista had asked to increase the property and auto deductible to 5,000 for property and 500 for auto, and that resulted in around $6,000 in savings in premium savings. And then the inserts that we have here are the different options for the time coverage. You'll see in the main part, there's $1 million in coverage, and then at the bottom on the left has the contribution, which that is a premium associated with that level of coverage. And then we have a $750,000 option and a $500,000 option. This policy period, you guys are at 500,000, and I believe we discussed that last year, and you voted to keep it the same. And so, Donna Krista asked me to bring the options you look at increasing it.
Can I say something on that? Our auditors always put a part of our management that our crime is not sufficient enough, and I kind of disagree with them, but they have to put it in there, so that's why I had WHA, Kristen, give you the option like you did last year, and where you stated 500,000, that at least the board's decision, not management decision for the audit purposes.
Right, I remember that discussion where we decided we should spend our money on things we can't control and not on the things we can control. Like, a lot of this crime prevent is things that we can keep an eye on and hopefully do something about before.
Are there other questions?
One question I had is we're doing an extensive upgrade to our fire alarm system. Does that offer any sort of credit or discount?
It does, if you have it, not necessarily an upgrade, so if it's a new system going in, then there can be some credits for it.
There are areas that currently do not have alarms that will, from what I understand.
What we could do is we could look, it's one building, so we would have, if there was a yes option, then we would have clicked that, we would have selected that, so I guess.
There's actually,
We can verify.
there's 3 buildings. One of them does not have an alarm at this time.
Yeah, if that one's getting a system.
It should be, so we can, Nathan, you and I can get together and I can get you in touch with
Sure.
Chris and then kind of give you the scope of what the work would be.
And can you tell us a little bit? So from what I understand, the sexual misconduct part is different. Like you pulled it out as a separate policy. Is there anything different? I heard you were talking about the amount of coverage is different this year.
Well, the tort claims or in Oregon, and I think you told
Yeah,
us that.
So what is transpired in Oregon is specifically with the pool, there's been a substantial amount of claims, which has caused a lot of the reinsurers to pull out, the sexual misconduct, realm. So what PACE has done to keep the reinsurers together that we have right now is they have reduced the limit to 10 million. It is its own separate coverage document. There is new exclusionary language, which basically is if an administrator fails to report if abuse that could negate coverage. So that is in there. So basically, an administrator has to follow the law. But more specifically, coverage has been reduced to 10 million. They've separated it and they've given it kind of its own coverage level due to just the amount of claims of that.
And one thing I noticed when I was reading through this, it mentioned that the insurance does not cover punitive damages. That's the same as what it was before. That's not a change. I just totally missed it last time. Did not pay close attention. This time, because there was changes, I'm like, I should probably read this all. I had just an observation, like the earthquake coverage says it tops out at 10 million, but our property is valued at 12. Is that
Yeah, so.
consideration that needs to be thought about, or?
Yeah, there is a maximum limit there, $10 million. Fortunately, it's gonna be paid out, so there is also a pool aggregate limit as well. And so the way that the pool will pay out, if there's a large disaster, like an earthquake, it's gonna be the amount paid out is gonna be your contribution to the pool as far as like total TIV. But at that point, we probably mostly depend on.
Federal emergency management works for you. When you need it most.
Or not?
Yeah, we talked about earthquake extensively last year. That was my insistence, but thank you for that. I don't see, so where is it broken out with the sexual misconduct policy? I saw everything else. Is that under the? I feel like I missed it, but oh, okay, there you go.
It's on the second page if you find the liability section.
Sure. Okay, yeah, this is a big book and this is the first I've seen it. Sadly, I've been a little predisposed. Is that based on like school size, staff size? What are they based that number on?
The limit,
Well, yeah, the fee, not, I mean, just the limit I get, but is the fee based on a cross section of risk, like the
Yeah,
number of
so-
employees?
they took out a 35% of the general liability rating, and what you would have paid in the general liability is split it over to.
Okay.
It's fund it.
Okay,
It's the same rating system. It's basically average daily.
okay, that's what, I was just curious. I mean, it's not a super high amount, I'm just trying to figure out that.
Yeah, um. Basically, try to ease the burn of that, like I said, it was already included last year in the GL, you were already paying for it, so it just moved it out of its own separate. Because not every district is qualifying, charter, district or community college is qualifying for $10 million. So, Principal sat down, we went through the application, we went through, and the listening recommendations that I made, all those came into, the district qualifying for the license. The good news is that when I spoke to Crystal before, defense costs were inside the limits. Now there's been enough complaining by agents like Kristen, that it's like, that's not good. And so they have moved the defense costs outside, so we were able to win that battle. So I felt pretty happy about that. So, and claims are settling for over 2 million, which is, they've been settling over tort actually. And so, it's a big concern. You know, as far as like amounts that paid out, we bill that 10 million should get. I have found an excess market too, if the district ever decides that they want to look at options on 10 million, it would be a layer to over. The most feasible one I found is Beasley. So that is an option too, but as of now, the way claims are going right now, no options, nice. Thanks.
So I haven't had time to go over in depth. Can you tell me what percentage increase to our expenses this has been from last year?
It's actually a reduction, isn't it?
It is a reduction?
It's like
Good.
the last page. I did see that.
I didn't,
page.
I haven't seen that.
It's like
yet.
minus 8%, 9,000.
Oh, good.
So comparison, last.
Thank you.
Oh, right there, I see it.
Yep, so.
Hadn't got there.
You guys are one of the few that is the good news, part of that is that, when. Kristen, Dawn and Kristen met, we decided to go, what's called meta commission, which means we take out, our fee out of the insurance. And we'll bill a consulting fee, and so that saves the district an additional 6%.
Okay.
So that figure is not included in that comparison part, but that's part of it. You probably would have finished like flat, which is. At pace, it initiated an initial statement saying that average increases were gonna be 17.5%, 18.5%. So, anything below that is a win, and part of that is the deductibles. Part of that is.
I think I remembered hearing that. That's why I was surprised to see a reduction.
Yeah, it's, yeah, we're handing out 18 to 20, 18 to 22, depending on exposure changes. So that's something. Very happy for you guys.
Talk to State Farm. Sorry, I didn't think it was out loud.
For the differences, for the different kinds.
Yeah, and that's about $700, like $714. Yeah. All right. All I got.
Do they need to pick which crime one they want correct? So you have an option in front of you at 500 or 750. And then.
Or a million.
Oh, and $1 million, that too.
No millions.
It's in the book.
Okay.
I
And the million, is that included in the already negative 8,000 or what's included in that
Yes,
number?
yes,
Okay.
that's in the comparison sheet in your.
Okay.
And I'm gonna go with, my stance has not changed on this. I really feel we should go with the lowest one, because these are things that we can control by paying close attention. I don't think we need to pay for insurance for things that if we just keep paying attention, it's less likely to happen.
I guess it's who's paying attention, but I get it.
Yeah.
Well,
I
and
don't- I
we-
don't mean that disrespectfully, but they're going through, a lot of changes this year, so, I mean, I would hope and pray we have people as amazing as Don and Krista. No, but I mean,
They all say that.
I guess it isn't a point of that, it's providing the transparency to the board.
But-
That has been amazing, right? I've not been on a board without Krista, so I'm just saying, like, I don't know if every business manager gives that level of transparency.
But if we're looking at this, I mean, this is just for,
Right.
just for the current-
Financial
yeah,
risk
so, yeah.
and, yeah,
uh,
yeah, so anyway, I'm not saying we
And
need to
we're
up
at
it. I'm just, it's a risk assessment.
We get,
Right.
Yeah.
and discuss it each year. Depends on the internal controls you have, the financial statements, how comfortable you feel with the person or whatever. There's only a few of us that handle the cash. No, personally, so.
Well, right.
And-
I just meant like when that changes,
Yeah.
especially if we have to use people outside of the district for some reason, there's more risk. I'm not saying,
Yeah.
I didn't mean any, I hope you
No, I
didn't
know.
take that. I apologize for disrespect before, but I'm surely not meaning that. It's not, if it's already in and we're saving money, I guess, at a higher limit, I'm just bringing up for the conversation piece that since we're gonna have possibly interim or new leadership and a new or
Mhm.
outsourced business, we just don't know. That it may not be a bad thing. It's not raising our rate.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
only speaking out of that context,
If
with the utmost respect.
Well, if
I
you're feeling
agree.
uncomfortable with somebody new, then we can always come back and say, you know what, we feel like we should bump this up.
I
Well,
agree if it's still showing a significant savings, there's no harm in being overprotected.
Yeah, amen. But
well, we'll consider a motion.
oh, well, I mean, I don't know how we make that motion, but I could.
I would
like,
suggest,
result
I would-
The last page of the book. and
I was
say-
just making a motion to approve
Right,
the.
I was gonna say,
bid.
like, I would make a motion to approve the property and casualty coverage for education 24-25 to 25-26 premium rate comparison page. I mean, I just don't, I guess what I'm saying is I don't, as written,
With a premium total of 99.
there you go, with a premium total of 99,428.
I second that motion.
Further conversation if you want.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we're looking at $700 or it's probably about $700 more to the million, or is it 1,000? I didn't look at that.
There's 3,000,
Million.
18.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, there is.
Yeah.
So do you guys, so just to make sure, we are going for the million coverage?
Yeah.
And
That's what's
has
in,
the
what if,
bump
yeah,
mentality.
this-
And we have options to reduce it.
yeah, well,
No, no.
I don't know until next year. I don't know how it's written, but
We can do, so pace, I know we can do it every 6 months. But, the other pool that they manage, it's once a year, so I'm pretty sure we can do it every 6 months, so pays.
Right.
I'm comfortable with that. I don't have any further questions.
But I was thinking of decreasing it if we can change it for certain, if we start feeling uncomfortable. But if you guys are strongly feel that we should keep it at 1 million because of all the changes, that I'm not dismissing that argument. In fact, I would go along with it.
I value Don's perspective that 500 is the base that they recommend. I think we should be
Above that?
above that.
Okay.
Especially going into uncertainty.
Yeah, I think I'd be fine staying the same with everything the same. And I'm not, I mean, I hate to, we just don't know what we're gonna do for a business manager yet. And that is the most vital role in this, right?
And that trust is huge.
Yeah, and if we share with another, we just don't know. Right, and so we have always as a board valued you and you've done a tremendous job. I'm, so maybe you lead us to the right trough.
So I guess my takeaway is that if we weren't undergoing change, you guys would be with me on cutting it down.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah, I just think
but-
the risk goes up
Okay,
because of the
that's
unknown.
what I-
That's my only.
Well, and
Yeah.
it's double risk,
Okay.
Right.
because
get
we're
that.
also losing the trust we have in our superintendent.
Right.
And it brings up a lot of concern from past history, so I would rather be safe than sorry. We
That's
can
still a
keep
savings.
them.
I guess that's what I'm looking at. We're still
Right,
saving.
and because that 1 million is less than what the auditor was hounding us about. They wanted us to bump it up a bunch.
I think they wanted at least.
Yeah.
Okay.
I-
I remember vaguely.
Yep, I think.
And again, if we were keeping the current status quo, I would entertain keeping it the same, but we're going into massive changes and I would rather be safe than sorry.
But we are keeping it the same, right? Isn't million?
No.
we-
We're at 500.
Oh, okay.
We're going up, but we're still saving money, so we're not.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the beautiful part in this.
Okay, so
Thank
we
you
have
for
a motion,
that.
we have had a second. There's been some discussion and questions answered. Any further discussion? Go ahead, Laura.
Jamie,
Yes.
Russ.
Yes.
Lauren,
Yes.
Dean,
Yeah.
carries 4-0.
Thank you,
As
Kristen and
always,
Nathan.
Kristen.
Thank you.
Sorry.
And thank you very much for all the work you did. I'm very tickled that we're saving money and getting very good. So thank you guys for all your help. Appreciate it. They do. They're top notch.
Oh, did I get you?
It says I'm asking you to, unless you need it.
You're so used to bringing.
Thank you, guys.
Oh, well, I wanted one for Laura too, but I just wanted you guys to have it for up there. Okay, up next is the classified administrative supervisory and confidential salary scale increase approval.
So I am proposing that for the administrative, confidential, supervisory and classified that we increase 2% for the upcoming school year. What you will notice under the supervisory and confidential positions is that I, as cost saving measures throughout this year and last year, I looked at duties, I looked at time needed. I did a, Don, what was that called that we had them do? A time analysis, and I've cut days down. For the executive secretary, we currently have a human resource secretary that we've put under the executive secretary. I pulled it out and I'm calling it the human resource slash district services secretary, which is food service, transportation plus HR. That number I kept to 220. And then leaving the maintenance transportation supervisor at 260 as all our custodians are there, and I do believe that's needed. But in my time analysis and looking at what was needed, I believe the cuts for the days help us use our money more efficiently, and I do believe the duties that those positions need can do those within that allotted time frame. And so when we talk about 220 days, we're talking about 8 hours a day. So really what we're looking at is a total hour. So for example, Laura works 10 hours a day, 4 days a week. Sometimes it's longer, probably tonight will be one of them. But we're looking at the total hours. So her salary or her schedule will look a little different. When we drop to 240 or below, there is no paid vacation within that time frame, because they have more time off. So I am proposing that the board accept the 25-26 proposals. I left the administrator positions because we did cut them last year. The days last year, I'm sorry. The one that I proposed, I am, when we were looking in March, I'm sorry, for a business manager position at 260, we found, in speaking with OASBO and like districts around us, our salary scale actually was much lower than it needed to be. And so I believe by cutting the business manager to 240, but keeping the salary schedule the same, will actually put this district in a little bit more competition to be able to get a business manager. Places like Fall City were actually starting at 80,000 and going all the way up to like 95. I think by doing what we do, and if we continue to use that, we will be very competitive in the market in the future. One of the other pieces, if you look at the next page, we just did a 2% COLA for the 25-26 classified staff. And one of the things that we are looking at is, again, I'm looking at a time analysis. You know, people say that I'm busy, and I am, but I'm very observant. And so we're looking at how our costs are, or how the time is being used and what is the most effective to ensure that we're giving the students our best, the best we can give them. And so while there is that 2% COLA, I will say that there will be looking at hours reductions throughout different sort of classifications. One of the things that I would caution the board is that I would caution about freezing. Because freezing, what happens is you start losing ground to other ones. It's easier to step up and then do things like a cost reduction, like furlough days or reducing in hours. So my suggestion to the board is to take that increase, but then start looking at different ways to save within those increases.
Their motion to consider.
I motion to approve the salary scale proposed for year 25-26 as presented.
Their second.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
So I guess I'm concerned about acceptance of that reduction in hours. Is that, how many positions is that?
Right now, what I will tell you is we're not, when we look at it, it's approximately, we're probably saving, if we do some reduction in hours just for us, a group right now, what are we saving? About 1 FT we're saving just by reducing by a half hour a day. And it's probably saving us, the district, about 23,000.
If you have benefits and everything with them.
Okay.
I know they're all difficult.
Well, I'm looking at like real world life
Mhm.
is way more expensive than 2% in the last 12 months. So
Yes.
to look at I used to hate the word COLA because it's just ridiculous, right? You're just getting a minimal bump. And then if you're looking at less hours, I guess I'm just curious about the, you know, the acceptance versus I'm just gonna look and get another job. You know, I don't know.
Well, and one of the things I think that, you know, as we go forward, the board has to remember we're using 1.1 million. And so one of the cost saving measures would also be if there is some people who do leave, we will have to not fill them. And you know, looking at how to use your time, how do we use our time effectively and our money effectively? And so
Right.
you know, people still have jobs in this piece. But you know, it could, if we can't seem to get that under eventually, then people won't have jobs.
Right.
So,
No.
yeah.
And versus prior conversations, I guess, you know, I
Yeah,
I get it.
No, I appreciate you asking.
Too, is like, we either cut their hours or we start asking them which their coworkers they want to have cut.
Yeah,
You know?
we've
Well,
got to start living within our means.
I would say also, like, to that compounding, that 2% compounding, if we don't
Sure.
cut hours, but we do freeze,
Right.
then we're like a year behind, 2 years
Right.
behind in that
Mhm.
compounding.
Right. And you need a bigger increase to compensate. Yeah.
Yeah, so I
get it.
I mean, you saw that a lot in the 2008, where a lot of people chose not to do furlough days and they froze instead. And about 6 years later, you had teacher unions and classified unions coming and asking for 15%
Right.
increases. And they're like, we can't do that now. So this is kind of a way to help save for that, but also knowing that we still you have to start moving within your means.
Mhm.
And it may mean, yes, people will leave because perhaps there is something better, but I will also tell you, this year, not one of our staff members had to pay a premium for their insurance.
Right.
And we have some good Cadillac plans. And so sometimes you also have to look at, I mean, yes, you have to have money to live, but also you have to look at the benefits.
Sure.
And my hope is that that pool will allow somewhat of that to continue.
Remember the percent is on each of the cells, they still get a bump if they haven't reached the 10-year max. So there's like a 3 or 4%. So if I haven't reached the max, those people in between are getting a 2% plus.
Right. They don't have to stay that 10 years to
Yeah,
get there.
people at the top off
Right.
that have been here for 10 years. It only relates to a 2%.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that.
Other question?
Okay, there was a motion and a second. We've had discussion and questions. Laura, can you do a roll call vote?
Soren,
Yes.
Russ,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
Yes.
motion carries 4-0.
All right, personal service contract for our business manager.
So I put in front of you the contract that Mr. Staley has proposed for the upcoming year. This would be through the upcoming year with the hope that we would be able to find, the district would be able to find a business manager that, so that Mr. Staley could transition out. I personally would like to thank Mr. Staley for the work he's done here for 2 years. I've told everybody one of the 2 things that I really wanted when I came in is I wanted to make sure our budget was so clean that people could look at it and understand it and know where every single cent was being paid to, or how we were spending our dollars. And I think we've accomplished that through Mr. Staley's leadership and pretty much, teaching us all about it. And so my recommendation to the board would be to accept this contract.
I will state that I need to say this publicly. I apologize for any offense in the March meeting. It was not intended or directed at you or really anyone else. I have always appreciated your professionalism and the level of exemplary work you've done for us. I would love to make a motion to approve the personal service contract for the business manager as written.
I will second that.
Motion and a second. I just have one clarifying question on the contract.
Ye-
It says made and entered into as of
Yeah.
the day of
Yes.
of 2024.
Well,
Can
come
we
on.
just scratch that 2024 out before it gets signed?
Yeah.
Or do
Yeah.
we need,
Yeah,
well, with that slight adjustment?
I noticed you.
I do also want to personally thank you for being willing to stick us through this transition.
I think it's important, very important. There's still leaving. I know she's always gonna be a valuable asset still, and or a new interim or principal superintendent coming in.
It's invaluable.
Valuable, and you have to realize, I said this to Krista, you have to finish the books in 1 year, you have to get the audit, you have to set up, you have to make sure all the agreements and contracts and all that, but you don't want a new person having to try to figure all that out when, and you just want it to be seamless. I think I use the word seamless, so as I go by, I will say goodbye, and it should just keep running.
I appreciate it.
Very much.
Thank you.
All right, Laura, could you take a roll call vote for us, for Jamie?
Yes.
Russ,
Yes.
Soren,
Yes.
Yes.
motion carries 4-0.
Okay. Now we get to move into the smorgasbord of food.
You gotta scroll up to the top to get my
I
list.
got them lettered. Okay, so 5E, we have a new board member starting in July who is willing to actually step in early and take the oath this evening, if the board would be okay with that. There's a few limitations. With this, we can swear this board member in, and they become a legal board member, but their votes cannot happen until midnight on July 1st. So that June 30th to July 1st, that is when they officially become a board member. If the board is okay with that, that means as we move into things, and really, Russ, you should probably be talking about, this is your idea. You had all of the
Yes,
information.
I
Why
would
don't you talk about
say-
the transparency and education pieces of it?
Right, and as I stated to Racine when I made the call about this 2 years ago when Jamie and I joined the board, it was like a big surprise. I don't think I would have proposed this if we didn't have so many administrative decisions to make this next month. At the time, I wasn't aware if you could or could not vote, but I don't believe that's any real consequence, because what you're going to be able to do, George, is be a part of all of the information, voice your opinion, and be well aware about July 1st of the decisions the board is making. Otherwise, you would be coming into a major meeting and major decisions without that awareness. I've I've met with him a few times. I know that you are willing. If you still are willing, I believe that it would be it would be a great thing to have happen tonight. So I would make a motion that we would, well, I don't really know what the motion is.
So we make a motion to swear in the board member this evening.
I would make a motion to swear in George Lablin as the board member for seat 2, is it? Okay, does it matter? It probably does.
Board position. Yeah, we need that one.
Board position. Do you remember what you ran for? I think it's 2.
was
Okay,
as
board
well.
position 2.
Board position 2, to serve on the Alsea School Board of Directors.
I'll second that motion.
All right, any questions or discussion?
Observation, that was a great idea.
And
Right.
this allows him, just
Yeah,
for
this is
the record,
important
to
stuff that we're gonna talk about and
participate in executive session.
This allows all participation,
Just no vote.
feedback. You will actually be able to move up to the table now at this point. The only thing that is restricted is casting a vote.
Okay.
And I'm double, triple, quadruple check
I know
that.
you have. I know. I've also spoken with.
Oh,
it,
good,
so,
okay.
um,
Go ahead, Laura.
Yes.
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 Proceed.
Yes.
Motion carries forward.
All right, I'll have you go ahead and step up here.
Do you need to hold his microphone?
Or I'm gonna swear you in first, actually. You can set your stuff down, I guess, though. You can come sit right here.
But you'll stand for this.
Yeah. I'll go slow.
There you go.
I have to go slow. It's a lot to repeat. Okay, I repeat your name.
I, George Lablin,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution and the laws of the state of Oregon,
Constitution and the laws of the state of Oregon,
and the policies of Alsea School District.
policies of Alsea School District.
During my term,
During my term,
I faithfully and impartially
faithfully and impartially
discharge the responsibilities of the office
discharge the responsibilities of the office
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations, Mr. Lakeland.
Welcome to the
Welcome.
team.
Welcome. Oh, shit. There's not even more comfortable seats up here, so. More. That's great.
All right, July meeting. I would like the board to consider moving the July meeting.
Which is
Now-
currently when?
It's currently on July 8th.
Okay.
Which means we would do the agenda meeting on June 30th, but we're in that unknown space. The policy BCBCA website states that we have to have our organizational chart approved by July 31st. And so by doing this, we would give ourselves time to do an agenda, bring on a superintendent, have our organizational meetings. It will probably be a short July meeting anyways, because it usually is. There isn't a vote that's needed so much as we just need to come into agreement on what that date and time would be.
We're gonna have a number of meetings before that, so I'm good with, like the 22nd, the 4th week, if that's not too late, but I'm really like whatever Tuesday, if it's a Tuesday, we choose the 15th or 22nd. But I think if you want a little more time, I don't know if we should wait till the 29th. But I don't know, because what's required with that, is there any paperwork that has to be submitted with all that by the 30th?
No, I believe according to the board, policy that you have to have your board officers in place.
Okay,
So
yeah.
it could be quick. It could be literally that you guys just vote on board officers.
Okay.
And then that will give the new superintendent time to do the organizational piece that you have to do in order to, like, you have to publish it and stuff. So you could literally just have a meeting where you're going officer, call it.
Are you wanting to do
Organizational
it?
policy.
What
Yeah.
were you thinking, Christine, in your time frame as you went through this in your mind?
I'm good with the 22nd. Honestly, as I go through the next couple of weeks in my mind, I think the 15th might still be too soon
Yeah,
as we're getting
yeah.
things situated, but that might be a great week that hopefully we have like the new super here. We're doing our meet and greets, we're having our conversations, we're building a more casual agenda, and then jump into that 22nd. It's gonna be a busy month for us outside of this boardroom, but
Hmm.
it'll be maybe an easier meeting
Yeah, I'm good with the 22nd or the 29th. I didn't want to push it so far out that we're having a meeting in a week and a half later again. But
I just can't do Wednesdays.
yeah, pretty much Tuesdays are great for me as long as it's not the last. Wait a minute, it's the first
Thinking of-
Tuesday
is
and the
that
last.
something else we're
Monday.
doing the July meeting is decide
Yep,
what date.
we
we're
decide
gonna-
on our date
Yeah.
and time also.
Schedule. I can't remember. I'm so tired. I know I work late one Tuesday normally every month.
Started tonight.
I'm
Sure,
not
probably just
tired
happy.
because of anything about but this, but yeah, so I do normally work the last Tuesday of the month late, so the 22nd would be better for me than the 29th.
22nd work for everybody?
Yes.
Okay, Laura, can you capture that the board meeting will move to the 22nd? And then agenda meeting should be on Monday, July 14th, which can be modified also. Okay. Wonderful. Next up, one of the things that we have to actually vote on as a board is what we would want a salary scale to look like for a superintendent. In front of each of you, and Laura, I printed you out a copy, if you need to put it in with the minutes. But this information was provided to us by Mr. Staley. And what this shows is that we have, there's a salary that we're paying, the base rate that we're paying for a superintendent, but that's not comprised of the entire package that she receives today. So as we look at bringing on an interim, acting, whatever that decision this board comes to, there will be somebody that has to be asked to do the contract negotiations. Historically, it's been beneficial to have a range that you give that person. And so let's just say, I'm going to just throw out a number that's really gross. And so we'll just say it's like, we're agreeing to pay the superintendent $40,000 to $80,000. Well, if they said they wanted an $80,000 package, we might say, okay, that's fine, but we can't give you a stipend for travel, or we can't pay this type of a benefit for you. But so the person that's negotiating that contract lives between those realms. What they're not allowed to do is go outside of those realms. So that at no point would they be able to agree, handshake or not, that, okay, sure, we'll do 95 also, or we'll take the entire package up to that level. So I just wanted to get this information in front of you. If you want more time to digest it, because I know you're reading through it just now, we can always have some of these conversations. It's just helpful as we go into interviewing and making these decisions, the range that we're comfortable on. And what questions do you have for me?
Based on my experience, I think it's close to adequate where we're in that 135 to 160 range. I think I mean, I don't know what we're actually doing. Are we actually going to like make an emotion to approve it now, or are we just
You can make a motion to approve a
Or-
range. Yep.
yeah, okay.
So, what did we pay last time for an interim? And is there a standard out there for what interims get paid? 'Cause I know many other industries, you get paid a lot more.
If you're an interim, it really depends. I will tell you, an interim is usually somebody who's retired, who is probably looking more for like insurance. So they might take a lower salary because you're double dipping. What I would suggest to the board, I'm just gonna give you my opinion, is since you're going out for a superintendent principal stipend or principal, that I would maybe do the superintendent plus the stipend.
Mhm.
So you were looking at 145. So, you also have to remember, I'm a pretty new superintendent, not principal. So.
Well, I wasn't saying 135. I
No,
mean,
no, I'm
I'm
just
saying the
saying-
range. I
Yeah.
wouldn't go any lower than 135 in the range, and I probably would be willing to, if we had a candidate that presented, these same options, to be at that 160 mark. But that doesn't mean we have to get there, right? That just means if the person, which I'm imagining would need some negotiating power there, doesn't
Yeah.
have to come to the board and be like, well, we have this great candidate, but we were off by $2,500 and
Yeah.
could make it. Unless someone feels that cap needs to be higher. I don't know, Ristine, what your thoughts are on that.
I'm looking up the previous one and I'm not finding it. So I
So,
apologize. but
Krista, so you mentioned that usually would be retired, they'd be looking for insurance.
A lot of times they-
Interestingly, my idea was that they'd be retired and not be interested in insurance.
Well, it depends if you're 55. So like, for example, I could retire when I'm 56. I won't qualify for Medicare
Right,
till,
right.
so I probably, if I retired, I would want more about the insurance. My thing is when I was hired only as the superintendent. So if you're looking at this, and I believe the range in which I was hired at was 130 to 150. Does
Mhm.
that seem about right, Christine?
You,
Or was it 125?
no, it was 130.
But that was just for the superintendent
Right,
role.
right.
So for the superintendent principal, I would say because maybe there's a little bit more duties in there, you might want to look to go a little higher on that.
So my opinion is something along the lines of this, but I'm pulling from my memory. I don't remember completely, but I want to say our previous interim was around 140. But then didn't need certain things nor want certain things. And so the compensation package all around was within budget. I actually think you should give whoever's doing the negotiation, we should decide on the salary plus a stipend not to exceed a total budget.
Right.
Of of whatever, I would actually say, because this is all budgeted in for 2025, 26.
right.
I would say that you are to exceed a budget of a package of $154,000. But also that means that if they really want an HSA, or if they want travel, maybe they're coming from a further distance, they have that maybe, but what if they can't do principal stipend, or they can't do a special ed? Like, do we want to give that whole stipend, or do we want to reduce that a little bit? You know what I mean? So I guess that would be, I would give a range, and then I would say not to exceed a certain amount, like a salary stipend range, and then not to exceed a benefits package.
I would say in my feelings, we'll have a superintendent principal. I would believe we may need to source that special ed. I don't know how much of that was in there for that. It's not as many hours. I know you said 2 to 3 hours a week.
I will
so-
be honest with you, look at that stipend, it was a principal special ed.
Yeah.
So.
I
I just
think-
also wanna, just to throw this out there, I do think that that person, or you could absorb the special education in-house. I will be, quite honest with you, I had no special education, I don't even have a master's in special education. My closest before I became a principal is I had a special education students in my class, and I had an 8 with me. So I would say that that can be absorbed in-house through duties, either with this person or other administrators. Even now to this day, if I need help with special education, I call people. My knowledge is because I literally have called. So, you could absorb it in there, and really people who have superintendent, knowledge usually have special education knowledge. A lot of it, yeah.
And they could still call the ESD. I mean, we may get charged for that,
No,
correct?
you won't. I call the SD all the time.
Oh, okay, but they could
To be
still,
honest with you.
they could still reach out to them and get that professional feedback that they need.
Yeah, I call fellow superintendents, I call my own special education teacher, like, I call everybody, and I even call ODE.
I think 135 to 155 is a good margin to live in for the person writing the contract, which, I'm assuming will be you, Ristine, but I know we have to make that decision. I just think that's a safe margin.
Can I make?
Those
But what
benefits-
about travel?
I was saying, can I make a suggestion that we give a range on the salary? And then
And then
a
after
range
travel?
on your stipend? And
Okay,
then
yeah, we
you
can
don't
do that.
exceed a certain level, because then that way, go ahead. Oh, I was just saying that way, like, you can take away phone stipends or travel stipends, or if they need a $5,000 travel stipend, we can say, well, that's great, we're gonna only do 132 in that, or whatever that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, however you want. Why don't you make the motion?
The bene-
I mean,
the benefits
I'm
aren't
like-
included in that salary budgeted though, correct?
Remind
So
me,
it's the salary
Sorry,
plus
State.
the 27.5 or 27.3.
the benefits are included. Correct?
No.
No, they're
No,
not, they're on
not
top.
at the
Okay, and
salary.
sorry,
TSA
thank you.
TSA is something that I personally
Thank you,
negotiated.
that's what that
You
was.
don't have to do a TSA, or you could say, we'll do a TSA of 300 a month. You don't have
Mhm.
to, it's something that I personally negotiated.
What is
The
a
other
TSA?
piece, a tax shelter.
Sure.
Okay.
The other piece is you could also say for a travel stipend, you don't have to give them something per month. You could actually say your travel stipend will be the IGE rate, the IRS rate. So that,
So many
If you-
cents a mile. But
yeah, so like
Mhm.
if they,
And
so if they, you know, so Right now, my contract says I get $300 a month, but I don't charge if I go anywhere in the county. So if I go to Corvallis, Philomath, or Monroe, I don't charge for that. Now, if I go to the ESD, I do. So you could actually say we're not gonna do a travel stipend, but you could say travel will be based on mileage as per the IRS rate. A phone stipend, really.
I want to know how much I get on that a year, so
So that might be part of it too, like, is that the?
it can be
the
more money
negotiation?
than, it can be more money than the thing.
Yeah,
Also, you know, the phone stipend is also a technology stipend. And
Yeah.
sometimes people want more in the technology because they're, you know, so it's kind of one of those pieces, like, a lot of superintendent contracts don't actually have travel stipends.
Yeah, I'm just imagining negotiating the salary and then you don't even mention these except for the principal one unless they ask for it.
You don't
That's
have
what
to
I
do the retention stipend.
Nope.
You take that out, but the health benefits, you know, like in my previous district, my boss only worked a 0.33, but he negotiated himself. He wanted the full stipend for the insurance. That's why he worked. So you might get somebody who said, I'm willing to take lower, but I want this, this, and this. And so, yeah.
Yeah, well, whatever you think, Christine, that you want this to look like for your flexibility is, I'm open to entertaining.
I don't know what the competition range is right now. We had Vince kind of advise us. We went from a 130 to like I think 140 or 125 to 140 was our superintendent one. That was the range that we voted on.
I also think you have to remember how big the size of the district is. You're not gonna make a Corvallis size money. So-
Right. I mean, I'm just taking everything I've learned in the last week and saying that I think this range is in the
And
ballpark.
they're not gonna be
So-
wrangling teachers and kids on Friday too.
Yeah,
You know, remind them of that.
I
Oh,
would
God.
like to,
To see.
But they'll be doing all their superintendent duties.
I do a lot of meetings on Friday, but I will tell you too, a 4-day schedule is not bad.
No,
I mean,
it's not.
so I think you have to remember size of district, right? So we only have 225 kids. So if you're thinking about paying somebody 170, I might reply. Just kidding. But I do think,
Bonus.
I do think, you know, I think just remember, like, yes, you are gonna have people looking at ranges, but you also have to remember, you also you can't be competitive with Philomath and Corvallis.
No.
I'm going to make a motion to set the superintendent salary package to the amount of 130,000 to 150,000, 55,000, excuse me. Working stipends within those parameters and a benefits package from $1,000 per month to $1,400 per month salary range.
Jamie, can I ask a question on that real
Mhm.
quick? So the health benefits, the 1,400 a month is what all employees get?
Flat.
Yep. Every single
Okay.
employee, because that is the negotiation for the teachers and we do it as is for everybody.
Okay.
Okay.
Then I will amend my motion for the salary range of 130 to 155 with a benefit of $1,400 per month.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Any additional discussion or questions? All right,
I guess, okay, so if they are wanting to negotiate something like a retirement plan or something in there, we would just say that has to go within that budget of that salary range that you.
I
Yes.
think
Right.
that we wouldn't worry about that unless we were looking at full time, right? An interim
They
isn't
could-
gonna
they could still
negotiate.
negotiate it,
But
yeah.
then we'd say, well, your salary is
We can,
such that it's gonna have to be below 155.
Well, the entire
that might have
package.
to-
Did I hear that correctly? Not to exceed 155 for the entire package? Is that what I understood?
No, she said and then add the 1,400.
Correct.
Which would be, she wasn't doing the math.
the salary,
But it's
It's
like.
Including stipends and things like that.
including stipends, but not benefits.
Okay, thank you. I understand that now. The
There you go.
TSA would be
A
a benefit
benefit?
or a stipend.
Or-
The
It's a-
TSA is a benefit because what I do with my TSA is whatever I don't use for the health, that's what I get
I
extra.
got you.
Remember, we had to tab that.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I would say, so you're saying, I just want to make sure you guys are aware of what you're saying. you're saying the total salary budgeted would be 135 to 155. So if they're asking for 135, or if they say 135, then you can negotiate that. 155, you would say nothing in here. So no phone stipend, no travel stipend.
Mhm.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that you make that very clear on that
Yes.
piece. So, but one of the things I would say is that still not really a salary range? Because when I look at a salary range of, let's say 140 to 150, I'm assuming then there's gonna be other stuff. So you might say a salary range of this to this with the whole package not exceeding this. Does that?
Yeah,
make
like
sense?
basically saying like a superintendent salary range of 130,000 to 145,000.
Thousand with
And
the whole
then
package not exceeding
exceeding-
155.
Yeah,
Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Mhm.
Okay.
Might be a better way to word.
Yeah,
that.
because if you say 155 and they go 155, where's my travel stipend? You're like, actually, that's in the salary.
Right.
So you might want to say the 135 to 145 or 150. And then you could say it's a superintendent principal between 135 and 150. Knowing then you can play, like you're not gonna do the retention bonus, but you can then play with the phones, the technology stipend and the travel stipend, something like that. That makes sense? Okay.
So you're saying add the benefits amount to the cap.
No. I'm saying just do a salary scale.
That's what I did.
I
No,
think
you said you added, so what they're saying is when you say the superintendent, so when you go out and you say a salary scale, like for a teacher, or for a superintendent. If you do 140 to 150, that's the actual salary, the other stuff. So this is what I get.
I said salary package between 130 and 155,000.
But I'm saying set a salary scale, so what does that look like? Without the other stuff, what would that look like? Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So if you wanna do 140 to 150, then you have some negotiating power on the phone and the travel segment. Because if you just do a whole package, but you could say not to exceed 155. So then if they come in and say, I'll just
Okay.
take 155 and I don't care
Okay.
about the rest.
I think I
I think
understand.
I think that yeah.
So I
go
think
ahead.
I will
Those two
amend the
numbers.
motion to approve a superintendent salary scale of 130,000 to 145,000, not to exceed 155,000 with a benefits package of $1,400 per month.
Including
There's
that,
additional.
right, with not to exceed from the 145, including principal stipend or other stipends.
So I think what you would do is you're going out as a superintendent principal. That job, according to what you just said, would go 135 to 145. But you're not, the whole package would not exceed 155. So if they come and say, I don't want any of that, I just want 155, okay, then. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
I think it gives you more negotiating power.
Okay.
Somebody like me, I don't really care, but I know I travel a lot, so I might want more on that. So yeah.
So one question though, Jay, so in your motion, is the health insurance under that cap or is that in
No,
addition?
it was an addition.
Okay.
It was a benefits package of
Okay.
$1,400 a month.
Okay,
Okay, so there's a motion. I'm gonna repeat the motion just so I make sure I understand it completely. So the motion is to approve a salary schedule for a superintendent between 135,000 and 145,000. Not to exceed an entire budget of 155,000. And also to include the health benefits for 1,400 per month.
Well, include in that cap or?
No.
Yeah. So just,
So
and have an
to
additional
include the
$1,400.
Additional, yes,
additional.
thank you.
Okay.
See, I still got it wrong.
Oh, it's tough. I mean,
All right, so motion, is there a second?
I'll second that
Okay,
as amended.
go ahead, Laura.
Jamie,
Yes.
Russ,
yes.
Solomon,
Yes.
Christie,
Yes.
motion carries over.
All right. 5H, while discussing superintendent of record. Chris,
I moved down one side.
well, can I, So Christy emailed this ESD to get like the sped rate and what the superintendent of record rate would be from the ESD. The ESD's rate is $165 per hour. Based on some of that seamless transition that Dawn talked about, there was a conversation that Krista would be willing to stay on and sign a contract to support the district. I'm gonna make sure I get this correct, but support the district through July 31st, only in after hours capacity as a superintendent on record for $65 per hour, plus mileage if she needed to come up here. What we would need to understand though is that if she did need to come up here, it'd have to be on like a weekend or Friday. There wouldn't necessarily be, that wouldn't be a while she's in her superintendency role for the other school district. We do need to get a superintendent probably on record to think through if things take us a little bit longer. But this is a cheaper option. It may actually help calm maybe some of the chaos in the district also, but I leave that to the board to decide what they would like to see, if they'd like to see it move forward with the ESD or sign a 1-month contract essentially with Krista on that space.
If it was needed, if you had
Yeah.
somebody in July
If it was,
1st,
I guess, yeah.
yeah, if it was needed. if
No, I
we put it
appreciate
to
the
the-
offer. I think it's a good idea. I wonder, I know there's contract issues and things like that, but does that have to end the day the new superintendent starts, or can there be a couple week overlap for assisting in transition, or how does that?
We
not-
could do a couple week overlap. One of the things that I was planning on working with the new superintendent whenever it would be is to finish up the integrated guidance report at the end of the year, because I know what we did with it. I'll be honest with you, if I work with them, I'm not gonna really charge.
No, I get that. I mean, well, I don't get that. I mean,
Yeah,
I
that's
feel
not really
like,
fair
I
to
feel
me.
like, what I guess is I'm saying it's okay, even if we had a 30-month window for you to hold over, even if we did contract someone on the 15th to continue.
30 month or 30 day.
30 day.
30 months would be really nice.
Like-
30 day.
30 months would be really nice.
30 day. Because even if that person contracted by July 15th or July 12th or whatever it was, it would be prudent to have some flexibility there, I think, but that's up to the board in general.
The only thing that I would be unable to do would be, I would not be able to do board meetings. So
Right.
if you had that board meeting, I could be your superintendent record and I might just sit on there and advise, but I would not
Right.
do the board meeting. I would be willing to do the superintendent of record, so if there are any questions or concerns, I could take phone calls at night and review contracts. But it's only if you don't get anybody, but there will be a transition. I am not gonna leave this person high and dry. Like, I will work with them and I will work with Dawn and we will get them caught up.
I think my biggest concern is if there was a staff change that was urgent, or there was a building contract thing that was urgent, since we have projects going on that we need a super for, we may not get, we surely won't get the knowledge from ESD. We're gonna pay through the nose for it, and they're gonna have to spend a lot of time figuring out what the answer is. So I think the cost savings is one thing, but the knowledge base is a whole nother level, so.
Didn't you state though you were going on a vacation?
I could still have my phone. And it's at the end of the month,
End of June or July?
end of July.
Okay.
So in reality, it could be one of those that, I will be honest with you, it'd be just a record. I couldn't see getting phone calls a lot. Because Chris and Mr. Albers and Mr. Staley and Nancy have really done those pieces. It would be more of, me being on record, and if I have to, technically the board chair could sign contracts.
What about signing checks? Because there's going to be a lot of work being done, and that is my concern, is the check signage.
Well, one of the things I will tell you too is that I review checks and they do have a stamp of mine, which I will be taking. But they could do that, and a lot of times what happens is this Bryn will call me and say, could you look at your emails, and I'll review, and then I approve them that way, or I approve them through our JD process, so.
And that's documented.
You're only billing us for the hours you're gonna work.
I'm not
right?
gonna bill you for.
I mean, no, but what I'm saying
Yeah.
is we're not paying her $65 an hour for the month.
No.
You're billing, so it's 20 hours, we're gonna pay you 20 hours at 65 or whatever.
Potentially.
Yeah, potentially.
Or it could be less, like I said, it would just be that I would be on record, so you guys would be
Right.
legal. But it could be, like I said, you might have somebody by July 1st, and it would just be, my thing is that I am not going to leave this district, and go by. I'm going to work with that person. I'm gonna give them that foundation. Dawn is here with financials, Keenan is here with what the plan is, we have Chris and Nancy. And so it's not gonna be one where I say, don't, lose my number. People are always willing to call, or I'm always willing to take a phone call, I'm always willing to sit down and have that conversation.
Is this something that we can motion for this? I can't remember now what it's called because I'm not.
Super record.
Superintendent of record, yeah.
Yeah, that Chris is the superintendent of record starting July 1st to July 30th. With like the messaging, like, I mean, if needed, I don't want to say if needed, but I
I would
think.
say we'd want to write in probably an early out, essentially. Like if you're like, this person's got it, I don't need to be here. But then again, if they're not using the time, what are we losing?
Right, that's
Just
what I'm
on
saying, do we
call.
even need it? We don't.
Yeah.
One of the things I would say is why don't you guys go through your process and see where you're at initially? If you have somebody who's ready to start in 2 weeks, great, you don't need it. But let's say come June 25th, you have somebody, but they said I cannot start July 1st. Let's do a quick, we'll host a meeting. We'll for 24 hours, we'll get online. I'll have something written up. We can say yeah.
I think I would be willing to make a motion to have Krista stay on as superintendent of record for LC School District from July 1st to July 30th of 2025 at $65 an hour for billed hours of time committed. And mileage. There you go. And then I think we could have more discussion if someone seconds that. And then I'll explain my thoughts.
I'll second that.
So my further discussion is, I think, based on my last 5 or 6 days of experience, although I believe we have some amazing opportunities as a board, I think it is going to be strategically difficult to have this done by July 1st. I think as I've looked through the process, even though my last board meeting last week, I was so like, yes, let's get it done. It probably will be more like July 15th. So we're literally probably talking about a couple weeks, assuming that we come to an agreement, everything works out in a perfect world. I'm actually so amazed at where we are, but I think if we pass this motion now, we're gonna have so many meetings. This is on the table. If we don't need it, we don't need it. But at least as a
It's
board, if
ours,
we've
though.
collectively agreed and already done it, it's one less thing we have to worry about while we do the search, our due diligence, and look for the right candidate.
Can I ask you then to amend your motion
Sure.
to put as needed? And
As
that way, then if somebody is able to come in on the 15th, then you guys can take me off as superintendent of record. And put them
Absolutely.
on. And like I said, I'm not gonna leave anybody high and dry. I am willing to work with the new superintendent in the evenings and on the weekends. Dawn and I talk all the time. I talk to Dawn more than I talk to my mom. And it's just one of those things that I think but let's do as needed, and that gives that option then, because I hate to be the superintendent of record and you have one sitting here that you're paying
Right, sure.
145.
Before you do that, I want to ask and make sure that this is absolutely in no conflict to your new contract and the role that you'll be moving into, because I don't want to jeopardize that in any way.
No, it would not. It would just have to know that if I needed to come out here to help or whatever, it would have to be on weekends. And I would only be able to do evenings. So my contract is for 260, so I would, be done by 5 or 6. And then if I needed to do any sort of work for the district, it would probably have to be after 7. And there might be some nights where I said I cannot do it. But at least you would have somebody on record, and you may not use me, you just might use my name.
Right.
So.
The only, do we have a second yet? Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Sorry. The only thing I was gonna also just bring up is, because Krista isn't going to be available, I wanted to just ask how the board felt about, so this changes things with when she's kind of on that, if she were in that superintendent of record, we can reach out to staff now, but rather than all of us doing that, can we filter things through the board chair position? If there's a question to Dawn, or if Laura's always ours and always super responsive. You're welcome. Thank you.
You're always ours.
Then that way, if there is a question that we need clarification on, we're not bombarding staff during that window of time till we get that full-time superintendent.
Yeah,
in.
absolutely.
Okay.
I have no problem with that. And when you're on vacation,
Yeah, we'll pass it
Yeah.
back and forth
Yeah,
to each other.
that's fine. But I think that's totally great. I'm good with that.
Okay, don't forget to amend your motion.
I don't know if I can repeat that motion and amend it, but I will try. So I will make a motion to retain Krista Neurath as superintendent of record from July 1st to July 30th, 31st of 2025 at the billable rate of $65 an hour as needed, plus mileage. And do I need to put you in that motion? Or is that a separate motion? Okay. Did I get it?
Yep.
Okay.
I'll second.
There you go. Thank you.
Laura?
Go back to the recording to write that one down.
Soren,
Yes.
Christine.
Yes.
Yes.
Russ.
Yes.
We're into old business, folks.
Woohoo.
All right, so we're gonna review IIBG and IIBGAR.
So these are drafts. These come from the Tiger Tualatin. We've ran these past OSBA and we've asked Tiger Tualatin if we can use them. Tiger Tualatin has said yes.
Okay.
So I've gone through the IIBG. This is pretty much the same as they had. The one concern that Spencer Lewis at OSBA had is in the IIBGAR is I've highlighted and it says the word harmful. He says harmful, you need to be careful because that can be very ambiguous. Harmful, what harmful to you is may not be harmful to me. People might say putting my kid on iReady is harmful. I don't want him to have screen time. But some people might go, please do that. So I've highlighted the words, I've highlighted how many times harmful comes in. I think it's a good conversation to have as a board to know that harm may mean something different. And is there perhaps a different word that we could use instead? We went through this, Soren, Mr. Roberts and I went through this on page 3 of 5, number 4, planning for student use technology. Mr. Roberts does have a digital resource menu that he's going to put together that he allows students or staff to put on, and as well as things that are educational websites. Some of the changes that we've put in there is submit a written request to the district technology director for approval for student access to unlisted technology at the school and on district provided devices, and then submit a written request to the district director of technology if it appears as though a website or other technology is blocked unnecessarily. I changed 6 on that one. Just honor students' accommodations established by the student's IEP or 504 regarding using generative AI or other assistive technology at all times. That was a different one, and I think that's fit our culture and our size better. And then the last one I took off under 5, it's on page 4, it's under 5A. If you go down below, it talks about other applicable directors. It pretty much was like, who's gonna implement it and monitor it? We don't have all those people.
Yeah.
So I took those out. So I wanted to take this to the board and say, are you okay with how it's written? But no, please note that the word harmful can be very subjective. And so when we do this, we can't come in and say, if we're gonna use the word harm, Mr. Roberts or the next administrator might say, I didn't believe it was harmful, but somebody might say in here, knowing that that word is very subjective. And that's what Spencer did say in his email.
Have we asked Tiger Tualatin what their council said about that word in their policy? Do we have that ability?
I'm not sure. We could ask, but I'm not sure. Pretty much I sent it to our council. That was just his concern. You guys might say that's
Because
fine.
my understanding was they didn't go through OSBA
did
council
not.
in this policy.
They did not. They made it themselves. So that was just something that Spencer pointed out. My thing is I highlighted it because he did say in the email, there's a lot of the harm word in there. But it could be that you guys are fine with it, just knowing that you have to understand is if there's a complaint, that what the administration might consider harm and what a parent might consider harm might be 2 different things. So is there another word that possibly could be put in there, or are you guys okay having that that kind of flexibility? Because the one thing I do want to caution the board about, and I have numerous times, is you don't want to make things so specific that you paint yourself into a corner.
Did council advise any recommendations for a different word, or
No.
just
He just said
strictly he
just
did not
notes.
recommend that word in
No,
there?
he just said just note that can be a word that can be interpreted in multiple different ways.
There's a lot of words that could be, like,
Kind of like a student code of conduct.
We do.
Okay. I would say get rid of it. I would say get rid of harmful or harm or any of it. It is subjective. We have a code of conduct for our staff and our students. And policy around that. I mean, I think if something were truly to happen, you can look at other spaces or, you know, bad choices of conduct.
Support the
Yeah.
conduct, yeah.
Because I don't think it's fair, like, Jamie, if you and I don't agree on what would be harmful to our kids, is it fair to hold the administrator and the
Yeah.
teacher to that level of our subjectivity as parents? That's where I was going with that, not as
Yeah.
board members,
Right.
but.
So what I will do then, if you guys are okay with it, is I'll clean this up and I'll go over it with the next superintendent. And then they could possibly bring it for our first read in August.
Okay.
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 Laura, can you make sure you put notes on that so I remember?
First read August. Okay. We don't have anything in first reading, second reading. Oh, sorry.
Just like I was looking at the ways harmful is used. I
Mhm.
think in page 1.5 or I5, the harmful or dishonest manner, you could probably put detrimental or dishonest manner. Because detrimental is more of a word of definition, I think. It doesn't apply to all of them, but I was just thinking like if you just put to actively avoid using technology in a dishonest manner, well, I think detrimental or dishonest kind of go together in conjunction with a lot of things. So
Well-
just maybe think about it there. I don't think it matters in the other ones, but maybe in that one.
Okay, because I'm thinking like if you look at 2.5 conscious when creating content, if you create harmful content, you might have to actually call the police.
Right, right,
So that, then that goes to, well, we do have to follow district policy, but we also have laws we have to
right.
follow. So,
Absolutely.
Well, and those are detrimental things.
Yeah,
Right, because
it
to your
just
point,
might
someone
be-
could be completely honest about the fact that they're making content intended to harm somebody. Like,
Right.
yeah, my
No,
coach
but
say that
somebody-
stuff trying to bully this
Politicians
person.
do it all the time. Sorry,
Not us.
but some. Okay. Anyway, I just thought that might fit there. Go ahead.
Laura, you're gonna write all this down. Okay, perfect. Okay, and so like I said, we'll get it going and then as the transition, I will talk with the new super and then have them bring it to you in office.
Okay.
Okay. We don't have anything in our first reading, second reading this evening. Any board comments?
Krista, I just want to say thank you for your service and your time here with us. As I mentioned to you personally, I wish I would have gotten to know you personally sooner at a deeper level. I apologize for anything that hurt you in the last few months. I know that came too late the other day in some ways, but I do really appreciate everything you've done for our kids, and our district and my kids specifically. It's hard to see you go. But the feeling I have is confident that you've set a legacy here of your work and your performance and your ethics that is going to get carried on by your next in line. And I appreciate that. It's been comforting for me to have candid conversations with candidates that are positive and that our school is in a good place and our budget is clean and we have a business manager that I didn't know was staying, that would have helped. That has done a great job. So it was a tremendous effort. The weight on your shoulders the first year was absolutely tremendous. And just know that in the future, I hope that we remain friends.
I appreciate it and thank you all. Like I said to my staff, when I came here, there were two things I wanted to do. I wanted to make sure there was no chaos because when I came that previous May, I walked through these hallways and it was chaotic. And I wanted to make sure that we got kids in classrooms because it was important for them to be in classrooms in an environment in which they could learn. I believe I achieved about 90% of getting rid of the chaos. My second was to ensure, I have no microphone. My second was to ensure that our budget was so clean that nobody could come in and try to pick apart and say we were not being truthful or just truthful with it. And I truly believe, one, bringing in Mr. Staley was probably the best thing that I did. Because now we have worked, we've gotten our MOE down, we've gotten the bond done, we've used our awesome grant. We're working very hand in hand with IMS and the GIGIs to ensure that we continue to move forward and getting our facilities right. we're getting things going. And so I wanted to make sure that, that our budget was right. And, being a principal was kind of a side thing. That was just the coolest thing because I love doing principal stuff. But I appreciate the opportunities I got here and I appreciate the lessons I've learned. And, I wish nothing less than best for the district because these kids deserve it. And again, to remind everybody is that we are here, this district is here for the kids. So I appreciate it. Thank you all very much.
Anybody else want to see if they can really make her cry?
Stop.
With that, thank you, Russ. That was beautiful.
Yes.
Any future agenda items? We got a few meetings coming up. I'm gonna say. We can probably just leave that one.
Superintendent.
Noted. All right, well, let's go through a few key dates. Last day for school is this Thursday. Congratulations. It's a half day for the kiddos. Teacher workday on June 13th. And then we do not have the board meeting on July 8th. That will be updated for the public. And with that, we are going to exit regular session 8:15. Does anybody need a break before
I
we
do.
go? Okay, we're gonna take a 10 minute break.
10 minute.
And we'll go into executive session. Wait, don't pause anything. But when we go into executive session, we will go into executive session to consider the employment of a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent under ORS 192.6602A. Thank you.
You. Wow, Steve. Amazing job.
Rose, you killed me.
I almost
Sorry.